So picture your favorite sport. Picture working so hard at that in the younger years of your life, maybe through college, and making it to the professional level. Then, at that professional level, you work so hard for so long to make as much money as you possibly can, and then come to find out, maybe not even 10 years after retirement, you lose your life. And that is the issue with the NFL concussion crisis today. In 2009, when these concussions were officially recorded and the danger was kind of recognized, there was 92 concussions that year. However, now there's upwards of 300. And what's even more frightening is that 6,000 out of the 20,000 retired players develop a post-season or a post-retirement brain disorder, such as dementia, Alzheimer's, or Lou Gehrig's disease. Now, I want to give you a science of the concussion and a science of what's going on in the brain. And I also want to notify you of the NFL ulterior motives that are becoming very dangerous to this issue. Also, the safety precautions that are being taken in the NFL and are actually seeming to become very effective. Now, there are 5 lobes of the brain: the frontal lobe, the temporal lobe, the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, and the cerebellum. Now, the 2 that are most important would be the temporal and frontal lobes, responsible for memory, organization, the ability to speak your language, basically any high-level cognitive function. A concussion, overall, defined by the Scientific American website, is an immediate but reversible traumatic paralysis of the nervous function of the brain, usually caused by a blow to the head. These blunt traumas are differentiated between deceleration injury and acceleration injury. Now that would be referred to the coup-counter-coup injury. The coup, a French word for blow, is the acceleration injury and the initial impact to the front of the head. Now this would be the brain hitting the skull. The deceleration injury, the counter-coup, would be when the player falls back and hits their head. Now you would think that would only be an injury in the back. However, this is one of the major reasons for these post-retirement injuries, is that there are these minor issues that aren't being recognized. For when a player falls back, there's so much pressure built up back here that there's actually a leakage of brain tissue in the front. Which brings me to this player, Mike Webster, who was the first to start kind of the concussion research back in 2002 when he died at age 50. And we've now come to realize that it could have been from football. Basically, Dr. Bennet Omalu performed the autopsy on this player. And according to a PBS video site, when he arrived at the scene, or arrived to examine the body, basically he found that the body was much too old for him supposedly dying at the age of 50. And this led to the discovery of CTE, a traumatic brain disorder. Basically, according to legacy.org, it's a degeneration of brain tissue, and they build up this protein. The protein is kind of wrapped around blood vessels and eats away at memory and your ability to think happy thoughts, causing you to forget things, ultimately go crazy, and become very depressed. Now, the players then blame the NFL for hiding this fact of CTE and not realizing it until now. Back when Mike Webster initially blamed the NFL, what many people haven't known until today is that the NFL Retirement Board actually did admit to completely disabling him. Now today, there are counter-arguments from the NFL against this, basically from the Mild Traumatic Brain Injury Committee, where artificial selection, they believe that players are, since they've made it this far in their profession and sport, they are less susceptible to injury and concussion. However, that doesn't seem very relevant because every person is the same when it comes to the brain. However, Justin Streletsky, age 36, 2004, he played his whole life and he committed suicide, diagnosed with CTE. Terry Long, 2005, overdosed on antifreeze, committed suicide, CTE diagnosis. Clearly, there is no artificial superhuman selection going on here. Then, continuing with the ulterior motives of the NFL, basically they gave the families who lost these players money. However, there was a cap to this money, and these ulterior motives are clear. They determined the money they gave them by age, how severe their concussions were, the years that they played. It really should not have been relevant to the safety of these players. However, eventually there was change. According to the NBC Sports, the crown of helmet rule was implemented. That means that the top of the helmet may not make contact with any part of an opposing player's body. Also, Roger Goodell implemented a stricter return to play guideline, whereas before, as long as you weren't unconscious, you're basically free to continue playing. Nowadays, if you show any signs of dizziness or gap in memory, you will absolutely not go back on the field. There are also posters put in locker rooms for the players listing the symptoms of a concussion, also listing the dangers that it can result in. However, the players that were affected by this in their later years and the families did not think it was enough. There was a 14% rise in concussions the following year after these were implemented. More needed to happen. Junior Seau, age 43, shot himself in 2012. He was diagnosed with CTE. More was necessary. Then, the NFL did implement stricter ruling for the consequences of these hits to the direct helmet, which did result in a settlement, a $765 million settlement for all these lawsuits. But really, what I'm really trying to get to you is that the NFL shouldn't be paying off their guilt. It should be all about the safety of the players. I realize that contact is a huge part of this sport, but at this level, we must really focus on the safety, and there should be no ulterior motives involved. Now, the new safety precautions have been working, as there's a 13% decrease from 2000 to 2013 in concussion injuries. However, we need to continue on that path. And I really want you to remember that these players have put in so much hard work, and we really cannot let that go to waste. It didn't have to be exactly 7 minutes.